amygdala is kind of like the alarm system of the brain. So whenever we feel a trigger, so this is basically for the brain to protect itself, to protect the body basically. So if a tiger or if a dog, and I won't do a tiger, but like, if a dog runs behind you, you would obviously like try to save your life. So this is the part of the brain that triggers the fight or flight, but now it's called fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So the 4F responses are triggered by the amygdala, right? But the amygdala unfortunately doesn't know that this is not a threat but just a trigger, or like being ignored in class. This can be a very triggering event for the child who's feeling it. So they might freeze, they might please other people, that is fawn, they might run away, that is flight, or they might get into a fight, you know. So that's what the amygdala does, is not the kid themselves, Poor kids are punished for, fighting with other kids. It's just their amygdala kind of triggering these responses. The topic is called Raising Emotionally Intelligent Kids with Stories. And we are going to explore two very, very interesting things. The first thing is affect labeling and what it does to our brains. And second is modeling, how we can model this to our children and not teach. So remember this concept. We're not instructing or teaching our kids. We are modeling it. So change your language from teaching to modeling. So these are two things, two very, very important takeaways that we're learning today. And I'm very excited if all the parents learn this. We will have such amazing, intelligent, and emotionally well-regulated kids, and it feels like a revolution. So I'm really excited to get started. So I want to make this interactive. I want to start with a game. So here I have the three different scenarios. This is the first scenario, right? And the scenario is, this is Anya. She's 10 years old. She lives in Mumbai in a nuclear family and she loves school. All right. She comes home excited one day. She comes home with a test paper. She gets an A+ in her test. But then when she gets home, she finds that her parents are fighting and she feels something. She feels something and she folds the test paper and she puts it inside her bag. So can you all empathize and name what Anya is feeling? I don't want you to do any cause and effect or anything like that, the reason why she's feeling that way. I just want you all to name one emotion that she's feeling. Just name one. Sad, shame, very interesting. Withdrawn, sad, dejected, ignored. Very good. Fear, confused, fear of being unheard. Very nice. Discouraged. Oh my God. You're all already experts. I'm so happy. Upset, scared, sad, ignored, alone, depressed. That's interesting. Let down. This is very interesting. Yes, I would have thought the same. So, okay, let's get to the next one. All right, before you answer what Aisha is feeling right now, let me talk. Okay, so Aisha is 3 and she's a toddler, all right? And I don't know if any of you if you are 90s kids, there used to be a cartoon on Nickelodeon, or I think it was Nickelodeon or Disney, I don't remember, but it was called Recess. And in Recess, there's a apt representation of kindergartners, and they're these like wild, unruly headhunters who are just like looking to just mess with the older kids, or even like take them and kidnap them, keep them in their kindergarten for days. This is a very comical but sort of an accurate representation of what happens in the toddler brain, because toddler brain is hyperactive. right? One moment they're feeling so happy, they're feeling so excited, and the next moment they cry. And there's a phrase that is trending in pop psychology and speech pathology. It's called big feelings. So these toddlers feel a lot of these big feelings, and suddenly, and this happens like in a click. Second, that they're going from like super happy to super mad, and they're throwing tantrums, hitting, biting. So yeah, this is Aisha, and she lives in a joint family in Bangalore. She just started preschool. Yeah, just because toddlers have big feelings, that doesn't mean we don't empathize with them. So we're gonna do the same exercise. She just started preschool, and she drops her toy when some guests arrive, and the guests are super happy to see Aisha, but she says, "Go away!" And she's so red faced and so angry. Okay, I gave away the answer. She has clenched fists and she's hiding now. So what is she feeling? What is the big feeling that she's feeling? Uncomfortable. Very interesting. Okay, angry. Yes. A lot of people frustrated, dislike, annoyed, unhappy, angry, yes, insecure, unable to express emotions, unexplained emotions, annoyed, wants to be left alone. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I have a very empathetic group of people. Annoyed, introverted, me myself phase. That's very interesting. Left alone. She's introverted. Yeah, you guys guessed other personality, which might or might not be true, but it's all subjective and all opinions are welcome. This is a very empathetic group of parents, teachers, educators, overwhelmed. Okay, so this one's where it gets a little tricky. All right, this is Kabir. He lives with his grandparents in a small town in MP and gets scolded at school for daydreaming. And at home, he acts like nothing has happened. He smiles too much. He talks about cartoons. So this is a kid who got yelled at by a teacher, and he's at home. He's smiling. So what's happening here? Happy child, make believe. Okay. Daydreamer, build up of emotions. Interesting. Not in touch with his emotions. Very cool. Escaping reality, happy-go-lucky. Doesn't want to upset grandma. Very cool. Scared, covering it up. Hides emotions, hiding true emotions. Doesn't care. Shame. Compartmentalization of life. Oh my god, you're all so educated and amazing. These are incredible answers. All right. Very, very cool. Doesn't care. Keeps secrets. He's caring. He's hiding his emotions. He's a happy kid. So maybe someone who wrote that he's a happy kid is someone who's also looking at kids' emotions from the face value. And this is something that a lot of parents and adults make. It's a mistake which a lot of adults make, that my kid is so happy-go-lucky. She or he might not feel all these emotions. They might not know what these emotions are. This is a common observation, right? But what I tried to depict here is masking, right? Yeah, he might be imaginative, but he's kind of masking his true emotions. Okay, so what happens is sometimes when kids get scolded for like being very creative, imaginative, or just not being like the other kids in class, a lot of masking happens because they want to kind of fit into the normative. It happens a lot with kids who have ADHD or who are on the spectrum. Daydreaming is pretty common, and they get yelled at because this world is not made for them. So they mask, they try to be like others, and so then they don't share what their real emotions are. Maybe they're not even in touch with their emotions, which someone really said in the chats. Compartmentalization is also something very interesting. Maybe we might not want to put this, but compartmentalization is a very adult skill, right? This can be categorized as masking, because he might be feeling those things inside. He might be bottling them up, not showing it on his face. He might not even have the skills or tools to show it on his face. Yeah. So he wants to escape shame. It's a very interesting observation. easily able to get distracted from sad situation. Whether it's easy or not for him, we don't know actually, because it might come out as tantrums or like very bottled up emotion which just comes out someday, and it's very hard to manage it. So what you all did today, which is you did this so well, and I'm so happy, is called affect labeling. Right, affect labeling is a very well researched, evidence based strategy, where a lot of the research papers that I read on affect labeling stated that they studied these participants, they showed them these expressions, they showed them pictures that are a little negative, right, and they asked them to name the affect of the person's picture that they're looking at. So maybe like a person that's very sad, right? So the person who's viewing it might also feel a little sad by looking at the sad picture, but then once the person names the feeling, that is the affect is basically feeling, right? That's what it's called in neuroscience or psychiatry. So once they named this affect, what happened was they felt more calmer and regulated. So how does this work in our brain? Okay, so this is the amygdala, like what is pointed at. It's the thing, little bead shaped thing in your brain that's represented in green in this diagram. And this amygdala is kind of like the alarm system of the brain. So whenever we feel a trigger, so this is basically for the brain to protect itself, to protect the body basically. So if a tiger or if a dog, and I won't do a tiger, but like, if a dog runs behind you, you would obviously like try to save your life. So this is the part of the brain that triggers the fight or flight, but now it's called fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So the 4F responses are triggered by the amygdala, right? But the amygdala unfortunately doesn't know that this is not a threat but just a trigger, or like being ignored in class. This can be a very triggering event for the child who's feeling it. So they might freeze, they might please other people, that is fawn, they might run away, that is flight, or they might get into a fight, So that's what the amygdala does, is not the kid themselves, Poor kids are punished for, fighting with other kids. It's just their amygdala kind of triggering these responses. So, so what happens is when strong emotion is triggered, the amygdala gets activated and the brain prepares for a fight, flight, freeze, and fawn response, right? So it's either anger, like very angry, fighting, or it's just like running away, or pleasing pleasing someone who has hurt you. It happens a lot with women. Women love to please other people, even if they've hurt you. Right, or freeze. So freeze is something like we just freeze in that moment when something happens, and it happens a lot with sexual assault survivors. Is when something is happening at that moment, you just freeze, right? So this is the amygdala that's doing it, because at that time, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for our regulation and logical thinking, like how to respond and not react, is not working at that time. Okay, so let's see what affect labeling does to the brain. So when you have these small strong emotional triggers, the amygdala gets activated. But then if you pause at that time, if you just pause and name the emotion, I feel scared, or I feel sad, I feel mad, angry, okay, the right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex gets engaged. Okay, so this part understands language better, right? So the language of this affect, that is sadness, happiness, or fear, anger, this prefrontal cortex understands it better. So it's the second diagram that's in blue, right? So when you pause and name the emotion, this prefrontal cortex sends calming signals to the amygdala. It calms down, the emotional intensity decreases, and you regain control and your self-awareness increases. Okay, so this is well researched, and also this applies to adults over 25. Okay, let's see how it happens in kids, because kids have a developing prefrontal cortex and it doesn't develop until the age of 25. And if they have any developmental disabilities, neurodivergence, the age kind of increases of the prefrontal cortex to develop better. It increases. Okay, what happens in a child's brain? Now, child's brain is not developed yet. The prefrontal cortex is not developed. That's why they feel emotions so intensely. You know, adults in their life are so confused. Like, why does this child feel so much? You know, I don't feel that way. Like, why is my child feeling so much? Is my child too sensitive? Is my child this? Is my child... Your child is not that. It's just that they have a developing brain. So they don't have the tools yet. They will. If you work on it, they will build good emotional resilience over time. But it takes time. What happens, the last process that I explained you, when there is a trigger, the amygdala gets triggered, and then if you name the emotion, then the prefrontal cortex get engaged, right? This happens a little differently in children. It might not, when they pause and name the emotion, it does happen. You know, the regulation does happen, the calming down does happen, but it doesn't happen with the same intensity as adults, right? So what is required is co-regulation. And this is my favorite part. This is what you can do with your child starting today, because this is a very, very, very important and interesting tool. And I'm so happy to have come across it years ago in speech therapy. Co-regulation also in the language of speech therapy can be called as modeling. You know, in an aeroplane, when there is an announcement in the beginning, दूसरों की सहायता करने से पहले खुद की सहायता करे, खुद मास्क पहने, right? That's what you need to do in this case, in emotional regulation, because that is primal to the child. You feeling calm and regulated, and you naming your own emotions can trigger calmness. That is their prefrontal cortex engaging with their amygdala. The same process that happens in adult by yourself, it can happen when you name your emotions with your child, in front of your child. You calm down and they look at you and they calm down. So how interesting is that? How interesting is the role of a primary caregiver for a child, because they're the ones who not teach but model self-regulation. So we are going to change our language from teach to model. Teaching is, unfortunately, teaching in India is instructing. What do you need to do? You need to calm down. How do you calm down? You name your emotions, right? Don't. Okay. You name your own emotion, right? You name your own emotion. Right now, I'm feeling so sad. And the child will look at you, what? And they want to copy, right? They love to copy you. They'll be like, oh, right now I'm feeling so angry. This is how you develop the resilience, the emotional resilience. This creates more neural pathways, and it basically builds self-regulation skills over time, right? So caregivers labeling helps soothe the child's amygdala, providing external regulation, that is co-regulation, modeling, right? You sit there, you process your own emotions. Then if the child shares it with you, you try and explain to them what they are feeling, right? That's also very important. So this is very important. You process their emotions with language, because your language areas are also more developed than them. You can articulate these feelings better. So if your child comes and says, no, I'm feeling sad, right? So you basically try and ask an open-ended question. Before getting to the cause of sadness, you can ask them, oh, how do you feel in your body? Like, are your shoulders droopy? Where is the feeling happening? Is it happening here? Like, where do you feel sadness in your body? Right? What kind of sadness are you feeling? What's the color of your sadness? How does sadness look like? Right? What's happening in your body? So this is how you expand the language. This is expanding their emotional vocabulary, basically teaching them how sadness feels like, right? And then you will be surprised with what your child comes up with. Because once I wrote a story on jealousy, and then I asked in the group, I told the mothers and fathers and parents in the group that this is a story on jealousy. Ask your child what jealousy feels like, as the shape of jealousy, as the color of jealousy. And the kind of stories they told me was just so heartbreaking. Like, if mama gives something to my brother, I feel jealous. If someone has a better pencil box, I feel jealous. My jealousy looks like a diamond. My jealousy is red. My jealousy looks like fire. So they come up with such brilliant, creative answers. It's just mind-boggling that kids know so much and kids can communicate so much, right? So yeah, there is a strategy that's called name it to tame it, and this is a strategy that's been used since a very long time, and it's been used in the field of psychology, speech pathology. You name the emotion to tame the emotion, and that's why we have all these emotion wheels. So, if you want some information on the names of emotions, just type in emotion wheel on Google, and you'll get amazing vocabulary for emotions.